Okay, good morning to all of you guys. Today is part 2 of the RPA. I'm going to continue going through the grid, which is page 3 and on of the RPA. Last week we went pages 1 and 2, and today we'll continue with page 3 and on. So please make sure to have your notes with you guys. I'm going to recap real fast what we discussed last week, and then move on with page 3 and 4 and 5. Hopefully we finish today. Okay. All right. Any questions before we start our meeting, our training from last week's? Any questions, any doubts, any comments? No? Okay. Let's move on then. Awesome. Okay. Let me start sharing my screen with you guys. So just to recap, last Tuesday, we went through pages 1 and 2, right? And we were discussing about when it comes to the, of course, having a single agency or dual agent, okay? And we know that when you're helping the buyer or the seller, regardless of which office you're helping with, or when it comes to Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, as long as you see the same license number right here, which is 00338699, okay, you need to be aware that, okay, that yes, you'll become a dual agent. Even if you're helping the buyer, and let's say, for example, someone else is helping the seller in Cerritos, for example, and they're part of Berkshire Hathaway with the same license, okay, you need to know that both of you guys are dual agent on the transaction, okay? Sometimes we tend to see that, well, we believe that because I'm not helping the buyer or the seller at the same time in the same transaction, that doesn't make me a dual agent. But again, dual agent is a broker, okay? So, and we're part of the family of that broker. So again, don't forget, when you see that license number 00338699 as a listing agent, okay, automatically you should think in your head, okay, you know what, I'm a dual agent. Okay, so unless it's a different license number, then you're not. Then you become a single agent on that list, on that transaction. Okay, and always don't forget to select your boxes if it's single or dual. Okay, keep that in mind. And let's move on. Okay, so that's always on single and dual agency right there. Okay, so we talk about the sales price. When it's cash, conventional, and FHA, there's different type of days of close of escrow that I wanna suggest you guys to always use. But the best way to know how many days I need to close escrow, always contact your lender or the bank who's helping the buyers, in this case on the transaction. So when it comes to all cash, please keep in mind that, my recommendation to you guys is always use a 15 to a 30-day escrow when it's all cash. When it's conventional, use a 30 to 45-day close of escrow. When it's FHA and VA, go to 45 to 60 days. Now, why that discrepancy when it comes to different days of close of escrow? Because again, when it's all cash, most likely, again, this is our investors, money, people who already have the money on hand, right? And they want to close the sooner the better, right? Because for them, time is money, and the more time that the money is held in escrow, if they cannot move it or start moving their business or their portfolios. When it comes to conventionals, again, 30-day escrow is pretty much good nowadays. 45 days if you're going through any hurdles, again, any bumps on the road, again, maybe they need a co-signer, maybe they don't have the money, all the money right now at once. But again, always speak it over with the lender or the bank who's helping your buyers. FHA or VA, why 45 days to 60 days no close of escrow is because sometimes you will come across that the lender will require repairs to be done on the property prior to the close of escrow. Okay, now again, if you don't, then again you could go for 30-day escrow. But again, most likely we want to do a 45 to 60-day, depending on all that. Now, also keep in mind that you also have contingencies when it comes to maybe the buyer who needs to sell their property as well, which they're contingent upon selling, right? Contingent on purchase. So you might need yourself a little more time as well when it comes to the close of escrow days as well. Keep that in mind, okay? Also, we discussed about when it comes to your earnest money deposit, you at least want to ask at least 3% of the sales price to make it a strong offer for your buyers, okay? We know that escrow will take a personal check. We know escrow will take a cashier's check, money order, right? And by default, okay, on the offer, it's what? It's already wire transferred, right? By default, it's already wire transferred to escrow. Escrow will not take cash. Keep in mind, okay, so if you have any cartel friends, again, sad to say, they will not take any cash to escrow. So make sure to get a money order, cashier's check, and take it to escrow or wire the money. Okay. On D2, in case you want to do any increased deposits, it's highly recommended in case your buyer wants to make the offer much stronger, okay, and they want to do a second increased deposit after they did their first initial deposit, which is right here, 3%, okay? Keep in mind, it's always best when they do it to do that in increased deposit to be done after they have removed all their contingencies, okay? Once they're fully have been met, all the contingencies, again, meaning inspections, investigations, reports, disclosures, appraisal, and loan, all that has been met and the buyer has been fully satisfied, then I will recommend the buyer to release the second deposit into escrow. And this is that's why it's here. It's already said right here upon removal of all contingencies. Okay. Okay, moving on. Loan amounts. Okay, loan amounts is your, depending on how much down payment your buyer's gonna bring into as a principal, right? So again, your first loan amount will go right here. If it's 3.5 FHA, conventional 5, 10, 20, whatever the percentage it is, then the difference goes right here from the sales price. Okay. Now right here, the rate. This is your first contingency, okay, for your buyers. Okay. We know that the rates were pretty low at the beginning of the year, and now they're pretty much, not that high, but they're getting pretty much normal at a 5.5. And back then were 3s, 3.5. Now, keep in mind, this is again the first contingency. Now you may ask, why is that, Freddy? Well, again, because if the rates continue going up, and they already are your buyers are in a budget, and they already got approved for 5.5, or they got pre-qualified for 5.5, and now the rate goes up at a 6.5. Guess what? That payment is going to go up as well. Okay, so if they're thinking about maybe paying $3,000 a month, most likely that payment will increase from $3,500 to $3,750, give and take on the higher rate. So now, what does that mean to the buyer? Well, again, if you cannot afford that payment, then he can withdraw without being penalized. Okay, because again, you're saying to the seller, you know what, my buyer he's being pre-approved for a 5.5. Anything above that, he cannot afford it, and most likely he's going to withdraw the offer. But again, please do not remove any contingencies until the rate has been locked as well. Okay, now I've seen this blanked. Please do not leave it blank. Okay, and also I've seen BPR. Okay, and they want to say is the best pre-railing rate. Again, what is the best pre-railing rate? Again, when it comes to that, again, keep on, you're saying, I'm willing to get approved for whatever given rate I get approved for. No. Always put a percentage. Okay, the percentage your buyer got approved or pre-approved for. Okay, and always make sure, okay, that the lender doesn't exceed at least 1%, 1 point, okay, for the loan amount. Okay, because all this is part of your closing costs. The more points they pay, the more closing costs they will pay. So 1% out of the loan amount is going to be $6,075. Okay, so please keep it. And 2 points is 13,000, and so on. Okay, so now by default it's conventional, unless it's going to be FHA or VA, or a seller is going to carry back the note right there. Okay, keep it in mind. And then we continue going in case it's just another second loan, it will go on letter E2. But if there's no second loan, then move on to next lines. And again, by default is primary residence. Okay, a primary residence is when the buyer is going to intends to live and occupy the property and not use it as a rental or as an investment. Now, secondary, what is a secondary purchase? Well, that could be a vacation home, either in Big Bear, Mammoth, or out of the area. That's your secondary home. Investment, okay, investment is when your buyer intends to not occupy the property, okay, but intends to rent it out or do some, or maybe flip it or do something else. Okay, maybe they want to buy it to flip it, who knows what. So that's considered an investment property. Secondary, vacation home. Primary is, again, to live in it for good, right? And then the difference for your down payment goes right here. Okay, the difference is because you already brought some money in, and this is going to be the difference to bring to escrow plus closing costs. Okay, real fast. When it comes to helping your buyers, okay, in case your buyer says, you know, Freddie, well, I have enough money for my down payment, my closing costs, and everything else. Well, you better check that bank statement that your buyers have enough money for down payment and closing costs. Okay, depending on whatever down payment they're going to put down. Okay, if it's 10%, well, we know out of 650, right? Out of 650, that's going to be, I'm sorry, 675 is 67,500. That's 10%, correct? Now, how much do we need for closing costs? Well, closing costs is another 2 to 3% of the loan amount. Closing costs is another 2 to 3% of the closing costs, okay? I'm sorry, of the loan amount. Now, I usually go based on the actual sales price because I'd rather have more than less. But again, if your buyer is coming with closing costs and down payment, so for example, another 675,000 times 2%, that's 13,500 plus an additional 6,700, right? 500, that's close to 90 grand right there, right? Is that correct? 67,500 plus 13,500. I'm sorry, 81,000 right there. Okay, so you better make sure your buyers have enough, close to 85,000 in their bank accounts before you proceed with their offer, without asking for any closing costs or any help at all. Okay, so please keep that in mind. Okay, so let's move on. Page 2. In case they don't have enough money for closing costs, okay, then this is the part in that location you would select and put down how much money they need for closing costs. Okay, and usually it's the actual dollar amount. Okay, and you can put 15,000, whatever you want. Okay, but it goes right here, and it says right here, seller to credit to be applied to closing costs. Now keep in mind that any difference, okay, any remaining balance after the closing cost has been paid or credited to the buyer is going to go back to who? To the seller. Okay, please make note. Okay, the difference does not go to the buyer as free money. No. If so, let's say out of this 15,000, only 12,000 were used for closing costs for credits and everything else. The difference of $3,000 is going to go back to the sellers for their proceeds at the close of escrow. Okay, please keep that in mind. Letter G2, right here could be it could be, for example, in case if you're going to FHA and they don't want to pay for any closing costs, then you could put difference of down payment is going to be as a gift from third party. It could be a gift equity sale. So right here, it could be gift equity sale, gift down payment from third party, and so on. Okay, right here, it goes right here on additional finance terms. We know that when it comes to all cash, okay, it's always best to submit your offers when you have all cash on hand, meaning that you have the proof of funds and they have the full money in the bank account as well. Also, you need to have the actual verification of down payment and closing costs. Same thing in the bank account, proof of funds, which is POF, okay, and the verification of loan application, okay, within 3 days or attached with the offer. Now, a pre-qual letter is just saying that, you know, based on their FICO scores and income, they qualify. A pre-approval letter, it goes more into detail. They already checked their credit report, the financials, and so on. Or the fully underwritten pre-approval, that most likely will be a DU, a desk underwriting approval from the lender or the bank. Okay, so depending on what you have on file on hand, please attach it with your offer. Okay, when it comes to letter J, the final verification of condition. Okay, we discussed, and when it's tenant occupied, that at least we want to have the tenants to what? To vacate the property 10 days prior to the close of escrow. Okay, we always want to ask the seller to have the house vacant 10 days prior to the close of escrow if it is what? Tenant occupied, and that's going to be on your TOPA. Okay, always make sure that actually has been addressed because now you have 5 days before the close of escrow that you want to go to the property and make sure that nothing else is missing or broken or damaged or who knows what. Because again, tenants, and I was most likely they're careless. They don't care. They're moving out. They're getting kicked out. They're getting evicted. Who knows what, right? And trust me, they're not gonna be very careful. Moving out their furniture. Drawers, beds, refrigerators, appliances, and so on. Sometimes they will scratch the walls, damage the floors. Who knows what? So it's always best to always request the seller again to have the tenants or the house vacant 10 days prior to the close of escrow, and then you can come do it in 5 days. You final walkthrough on that. Okay. Now, if it is not tenant occupied, then I would definitely continue to leave it at 3, at 5, or go to 3. Okay. But again, this is always best when you're getting close to the close of escrow. Okay. And I will put up if it is owner occupied, I will go 3 days close of escrow, because now for sure that the landlord or the owner, okay, has packed up, has things in boxes, getting ready to close to move out, right? So you definitely want to make sure that the seller has everything that already packed up, getting ready to move out of the property. So because if you go in 5 days, most likely by then the sellers are not moving out yet. They're taking their time. They want to wait for maybe at least few days before the close of escrow to start to pack up. So always good to go to 3 instead of 5 if it's owner occupied. If it's vacant, then leave it at 5. If it's vacant, leave it at 5. Okay. When it comes to assignment request, is when you can add or delete buyers to the transaction. Okay. Maybe you need a co-signer. Okay. Or maybe you want to delete a buyer. Who knows what? But again, keep in mind you also have 17 days. Okay. After the acceptance to do any changes to the transaction, either to add or delete. And when you add or delete a buyer, okay, keep in mind you need to use card form AOAA. Again, card form AOAA. Okay, keep that in mind. When it comes to the loans, we know that by default everything is already set to 17 days. When it comes to your appraisal, disclosures, reports, loan, everything down the line is 17 days. So unless you need more time, okay, or less time, you want to do it, always goes right here. Or if you're gonna say, you want Freddy, well, we don't need a loan contingency, then automatically you're gonna remove it from here from the get-go. Okay, from the beginning, it's already removed that your buyer does not need a loan contingency. Now, can I cancel my escrow if I don't have a loan contingency and that's my only one that is left remaining? Nope. If you select no loan contingency from the beginning, you're saying that, you know what, you don't need to, you're fully confident that your buyer will get approved for that given loan. Okay, you're saying your buyer's really fully confident that the buyer will get approved for that loan. Now, if they don't get approved for that loan, then guess what? You will not be able to cancel based on that contingency. Okay, so please keep that in mind. Same thing goes with the appraisal. Okay, no appraisal contingency. Okay, back in at the beginning of the year, a lot of offers were coming with no appraisal contingency. Okay, now it's a normal. Now actually you want to leave it into effect. But again, if you remove that appraisal contingency, you're saying, you know what, if the house or the property does not appraise at the actual sales price value, right, then the buyer will come the difference out of pocket. Okay, now keep in mind when you have an appraisal contingency in effect, okay, there are 3 things that can happen when you have an actual appraisal contingency. The first one, if the house doesn't meet the appraised value, right, then most likely, hopefully, you can negotiate and go back to the seller and ask the seller to what? To lower the price to appraised value, right? And then you guys can move on. Now, if the seller says, nope, we're not gonna drop the price to appraised value, then most likely the seller is gonna ask for the buyer to what? To bring in the money, the difference to meet the sales price value. So if in this case, the house we offer 675 and the house only appraised at 650, then the buyer will have to come in the difference of 25,000 plus down payment and plus closing costs, depending how you wrote the offer. Okay. Now, the third option, okay, if the seller doesn't want to drop the price or the buyer doesn't want to bring the difference out of pocket, then most likely there's no deal, most likely there'll be a cancellation because neither party wanted to what? To adjust the price or to bring the money out of pocket to meet the price value. Okay, so please keep that in mind. Third option, okay, but again, for that to work, you need to have the appraisal in play. Okay, so please do not remove the contingency. Okay, because if you do, you're saying the buyer what? The buyer will pay the difference out of pocket. Letter A, L3, investigation of the property, same thing. Okay, the buyer has 17 days to do their due diligence when it comes to doing their own investigations of the property. Again, and this goes with again, home inspections, roofers, fireplaces, foundations, soil, everything regarding the property. The buyer has 17 days. Septic tanks, again, you name it. Okay, the buyer has the right to do all those investigations at their expense, unless you have negotiated with the seller to pay for maybe for a septic tank certification or something else, a roof certification or foundation certification or something else. Then again, the seller will pay for those, all that. Okay, but unless the buyer has to pay out of their own expense all the reports and investigations on the property. Okay, same thing, informational access to the property. Again, if they want to do any maintenance law, any police, any crime reports, anything else against the property, the NHD and so on, it's all part of that, right? To review any documents provided by the seller. Okay, disclosures, leases, liens, maybe solar panels, who knows what, right? Again, all that has to be reviewed within 17 days after acceptance, okay? Or 5 days after receipt, whichever is later. Keep that in mind, okay? The title report, which is the preliminary report, right? Same thing, that comes from escrow. Okay, any common interest subdivisions, right? Any CCNRs, right? HOA documents, same thing, 17 days. Review of the lease or lien items. Again, we're talking about any PACE or HERO items, solar panels, windows, anything that was done to the property to have any high efficiency items on the property as well. Now, in case you want to remove any contingency here, okay, you gotta need to attach car form CR, contingency removal car form CR. Okay, number one. Okay, so again, right here, when it comes to the loan or the appraisal, automatically you could remove them from the beginning. But anything else from here, okay, you need to attach car form CR. Okay, maybe they don't want to do a home inspection. Maybe they don't care for a fireplace inspection or anything else. Then you need to attach car form CR and select the appropriate box, which items you want to remove that contingency for. Okay, please keep that in mind. And then the last one, LJ. Okay, when it comes to the contingency of purchase, this is only to be selected when your buyer needs to sell their property to buy this one. You need to notify the seller, the buyer needs to sell on their property, their down leg, to buy this up leg. This is your property, okay? So always make sure to attach and select car form COP, contingency of purchase. Okay, letter M1, when it comes to possession of the property, okay, we know that upon what? Upon notice of recordation, when the property has finally recorded at the county records, right? That's when the keys are given, should be given to the buyer upon recordation, right? Again, and usually that happens around 2 p.m. in the afternoon, 1 o'clock the latest, right? 3, okay? But again, when you know that when you have receive a phone call, an email, or a text from your escrow holder that the property has been closed and recorded, then yes, you may give the keys to the buyer to move in and start, unless it's occupied, and then you gotta wait. Okay, unless you want to give it to 6 p.m. on that day, or a different time, different date. It goes right here. It goes right here. Okay, right there. Excuse me. Okay, now if the seller is occupying the property, okay, then we know that of course any 29 days or fewer, if you guys accepted to allow the seller to remain in possession, okay, now anything below 29 days is going to use car form SIP, okay, car form SIP for 29 days or fewer. If it's going to be more than 30 days, then you need to use car form RLAS, rent lease after sale. Now, keep in mind that if you're going to do or allow the seller to remain in possession, please make sure is done 29 days or fewer. Because once you go 30 days or more, then the seller will become automatically a tenant to the property. Now, if that seller becomes a tenant and the tenant now is in play based on the laws of California, if the seller decides not to leave the property and say, you know what, well, I'm staying here, I couldn't move out, I cannot leave, I gotta stay here, I'm sorry, then you gotta go through the process of what? Unlawful detainer and eviction processes. After 30 days, the seller will become a tenant. And then if the tenant doesn't want to move out, then you got to go through evictions and unlawful detainer through court. And that's going to cost you more money. Okay. But again, I encourage you guys to please, and I recommend to always have a deposit or withheld in escrow from the seller. Okay. At least $5,000. Again, I know it was very crucial back in a few months back. You know, you guys were allowing the seller to remain without any rent back, without any deposits, without any money to be held in escrow. Now, please change that mindset, change that mentality. Please have some money to be withheld in escrow, and now is rent back, okay? And the rent back can be based on the buyer's PITI. What is PITI? Okay, that's their payment principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, okay? So if they're gonna pay $3,000 for their mortgage, which is PITI, okay, you can always do a proration of 30 days, okay? So it's $3,000, so that'll be $100 a day. So if they say 10 days, that'll be $1,000 to remain in the property, right? So $3,000 a day, I'm sorry, a month, that's 30 days. So $100 a day, okay? So, but again, make sure it's always 29 days or fewer so they don't become a tenant, okay? If it is tenant occupied, that's a different story, right? Then always use your card from TOPA, and you want to make sure the tenants are what? They leave the property again 10 days prior to the close of escrow. All right, always attach the TOPA. And now if it's more than one unit or a house, whatever, always address what property you want it to be vacant. Okay, keep it in mind. Seller has 7 days to provide this document to the buyer. Okay, so now keep in mind that within 7 days or 17 days, whatever comes first. Okay, if the seller has not provided any documents to you guys can submit a notice to perform to the seller. Okay, if by the 5th day the seller has not yet provided any disclosures, reports, leases, anything else that the seller needs to provide a city pre-sale report, then yes, you can provide or give them a notice to perform, NSP, car form NSP, notice to sellers to perform. Okay, because now you're putting pressure on the seller. Hey, you know what? Your time's coming up and you have not yet provided us with any disclosures. And again, do not be like me. Do not get us all crazy and trying to do your home inspections and appraisals, even though they put a time limit. When they probably say, hey, your buyer has 10 days to do a home inspection and to remove the appraisal contingency. Well, again, please provide me these disclosures so the buyer can move on without any problems at all. Okay, again, in the past, I always provide this story to you guys that I lost a buyer because again, I went out on my own way. I requested to do the home inspection and the appraisal at the same time, just because the time was of the essence, but I didn't receive any disclosures. Once I received disclosures the following day, we found out that somebody had passed away. My buyer was really upset at me because he was really superstitious with the death of somebody died in the property. They canceled the escrow based on that disclosures. I had to pay the home inspection and the appraisal, and they walk away, and I lost a buyer, and I was negative because again, I had to pay home inspections and the appraisal out of my own pocket. So please be very careful before you order the home inspection and the appraisal. Always go through those disclosures before you make any judgments on your own occur. Okay. Okay. Moving on. And when it comes to escrow instructions, then to be signed and returned back to the escrow holder within 5 days. Again, when it comes to the time of paying fees for HOA documents, 3 days on that. Okay. And the seller has 7 days to install smoke alarms and carbon monoxide detectors and water heater bracing, 7 days. And when it comes to any evidence of the representative capacity or authority, again, you have 3 days to provide card form RCSD-B, representative capacity statement disclosure -buyer. Okay, you need to provide that within 3 days after acceptance. You need to let them know that your buyer is an entity, corporation, trust, LLC, probate, who knows what. But again, you need to provide and disclose within 3 days after acceptance. Okay, all that information to the seller. Any questions on page 1 and 2? Okay, good.
Freddie.
Yes, Brenda.
So put a turn on my camera. When you said the seller to deliver the property vacant, you said 10 days prior to escrow?
10 days prior to escrow when it is tenant occupied, Brenda.
Okay, only when it's tenant occupied.
Yeah, because you definitely want to give keep in, if you wait to at least 5 days, you know, most likely our tenants wait to the last moment to move out, right?
Right.
So, and then 5 days before they move out, again, you want to make sure to go and do your final walkthrough, right? And that's why we do it at least 10 days. So, you know, the house is vacant, right? So on the 5th day, you could come back and do your final walkthrough, and you maybe the house has any damages. Then you can always go back to the seller. Hey, you know what? Well, the house got damaged, the floor, the windows, walls. Hey, replace them, fix them up before we close the escrow. Now you give at least have 5 more days for the seller to perform and do those repairs prior to the close of escrow.
Okay, but it wouldn't be a good idea to have the same thing because for the buyer, I mean for the sellers to, because they got to move too, right?
Right, exactly. So most likely, a lot of sellers do not move out, right? If they move out actually at the close of escrow, or even or maybe 3 days prior to, or maybe on the weekend, who knows what. So that's why if it's gonna be if it's seller occupied, you want to do your final walkthrough at least 3 days to the prior to the close of escrow.
Okay.
Because now if you do it 5 days, most likely they're not packed up. Most likely they're not having it in boxes, right? And 3 days, hopefully by then, something's been packed up. Something hopefully by then the house is maybe empty. Who knows what?
Okay.
Yeah. Now if they haven't moved out or they haven't even packed up, then I would request an extension, Brenda. Hey, you know what? Since I don't see any movement going on here in the house, let's extend the escrow. But you gotta move out.
Right.
Right on this day.
Because it just says after escrow in that in M2.
Where after escrow? This is M2 right here.
Right. So where if it was before escrow, even
this is first.
Where would you put that? Where would you put that 5 days? Even if it was tenant occupied.
Okay, if it's tenant occupied, you gotta use card form TOPA.
Oh, and it's in that form.
Yeah, that form for tenant occupied. Yes.
Okay.
Now but again, my thing here, Brenda, that right here when it comes to letter J, right? This is what you want to modify to do your final walkthrough.
Okay,
yes.
got it. Okay.
Right. Okay. So if it's tenant occupied, okay, well, I want to give, instead of being 5 days prior to the close of escrow, I want to do my final walkthrough, right? At least 10 days or 5 days, right?
Okay, got it.
Yes. Okay. All right. Anything else? We're good? All right, let's move on. So on page 3, again, keep in mind that when it comes to flyers, open houses, the MLS, okay, please do not rely on that information when it comes to when it says you know, appliance to be included, washer and dryer, refrigerator, stove. Again, yes, it could be there, right, as a way to make it more enticing for the property. But again, if you don't select the boxes here, okay, you're saying that you don't want those appliances, okay? So don't, please, if your buyers want those appliances because it was maybe on the MLS, on a flyer, or maybe that agent told them on that open house, hey, you know what? This property is coming with a washer and dryer, they include it, okay, etc. So if you know that for a fact, then always select the items that they want to be included on the sale. Okay. So again, the stove, oven, combos, refrigerators, wine refrigerators, washer and dryers, dishwashers, microwaves, video doorbells. Again, nowadays very common. That now the smart homes, security cameras, home controls, the wall mounts for the brackets for the TVs or audios, right? And by default is a bathroom mirrors. It's already there unless excluded below. Okay. Now, in case they don't want none of that, then go ahead and just unselect. Okay. And you want to get it here. Okay. Exclude the items. Well, maybe they don't want the stove, right? Maybe they don't want the washer and dryer, right? So again, and put it here. You know what? We don't care for your washer and dryer. We have our own washer and dryer. So please take them with you guys, because again, if you guys don't mention it, if you guys leave it blank, sometimes yes, they will leave them behind because maybe yes, it is part of the sale, right? But maybe your buyer just wasn't want any other more appliances. You know, I already have my own. I have my Sub-Zeros, my KitchenAid, my Viking, my other stuff, my Maytags. I don't want their Whirlpool, their their ABC branding. I don't want none of that, right? I want my top line appliances. Okay, well, take them with you guys. So keep that in mind. Excuse me. Okay, keep that in mind. So now, when it comes to real property and personal property, okay, anything that goes through the wall, through a screw, is considered real property. For example, the wall mounts, brackets, right, behind the TV, that's actually mounted on the wall and is screwed in with the screw or a bolt or something like that. So that's considered real property. Personal property is anything that is what? That is movable, okay? That anything can be moved, like a dishwasher, a washer and dryer, right? A stove, a microwave, okay? A stove top is attached to the countertop, okay? Maybe the actual an overhead microwave with the hood range, right? That's also personal property because it's not attached to the actual wall. There's brackets or something holding the actual microwave. Okay, so please keep that in mind and make sure what is considered real property and personal property. Okay, let's move on. Letter Q. Okay, letter Q. Again, there's a lot of discrepancy, a lot of misleading when it comes to letter Q, when it comes to the allocation of cost. Okay, keep in mind right here it says who pays. Okay, now this is who's gonna pay only for what? For the report. Okay, it doesn't say who's gonna pay for the work that is mentioned on the report. Okay, again, this is only to say who's gonna pay for the report. It doesn't mention anything about who's gonna pay for the work that is in the report. Okay, so again, when it comes to the NHD, right, the natural hazard zone disclosure, we always want to ask the seller to pay for it, and we want to always ask and select the environmental. Environmental is anything that is man-made. Okay, we already talked about it. Landfills. Okay, power towers, right? Cell phone towers. Anything that obstruct. Okay, the property that is man-made. Okay, it should be selected, and also you want to have it here for the environmental. And last week we know that by the holiday area, there's a landfill right there. Okay, now if you don't select the environmental on the NHC, guess what? It will not show up on the NHC report. Okay, and if you're not aware, like Brenda is, Morena, right? She knows there's a landfill on the holiday area, so she most likely will warn her buyers, hey, you know what? Just to let you know, okay, this area, sometimes it gets kind of smelly. There's stank in the air. Okay, but if Brenda was not aware about the landfill because she's out of the area or doesn't know the location so far, right? But again, you definitely want to always select the environmental. And then if the buyers buy the property and they come back after you, hey Brenda, you know what? You never told me there was a landfill, and eventually in the afternoon it smells really bad. We were not aware. Well, let's go back to your NHC report. And luckily for you, guess what? I did select the environmental. You know what? Guess what? Mr. Buyer, it says here there's a landfill, and you did sign for it. So it was up to you to read and go and read through all this and make sure, right? So don't tell me I didn't tell you. The report told you. Because I didn't tell you because guess what? I was not aware. But we had a report that says there's a landfill right there. Okay. So please, guys, keep that in mind. Always select environmental, regardless of which NEC report you guys select. Okay. And the provider, always select your provider. Okay. Please do not put seller's choice. Okay. Do not put seller's preferred. It's up to them. Okay. Please select your provider. Okay. Always select a provider. Okay. When it comes to Q2, termite, okay, termite right there. We want the termite to report to be paid by who? By the seller. Okay, again, this is just the report. It's not the completion. It's not the work. Okay, if so the house is infested and has termite, it needs to be fumigated, it needs to be tented. It nowhere here it says who is to pay for the work on this report. We're only asking for the report here. Okay. And at the bottom right here, where it says other terms, this is where we're gonna select and ask the seller to pay for that work on this report to be done. Okay. Again, reports paid by who? By the seller. Okay. Again, when it comes to smoke alarms, carbon monoxide, and heating bracing, who's gonna install it? Who's gonna pay for it? The seller. Any government required point of sale. This is a city pre-sale report. Southgate, Lingwood, Cudahy, Maywood, Gardena, LA, 9A report, Long Beach, right? Other Azusa, Bell Gardens, other cities have what is called a city pre-sale report. Okay, who's gonna pay for it? The seller. Okay. Now, who's gonna do the government required point of sale and then corrective remedial action? The seller. Okay. Now, when it comes to escrow fees, right? Who's gonna pay for them? Not the seller, but each shall pay their own fees. And I have seen this in the past. I seen this each pay their own. Okay. Again, please, it's already here, folks. Please read your options. Okay. Read your options. So again, just select each to pay their own. Okay. And don't put, also I seen this 50-50. Keep in mind 50-50 is not always accurate. Okay. Because sometimes the seller has to pay for more fees. Okay. And you don't want to go 50-50. Maybe, for example, let's say that the seller, he has back pay taxes that they need to pay. Okay. Maybe they have again, and if you go 50-50, so now you're saying those taxes are going to be shared with who? With the buyer. So if they're delinquent on their taxes, now you're sharing the cost to the buyer. You want to go 50-50? No, please don't. This is why you want to what? Always have each to pay their own fees. So the payer will pay their taxes, their delinquent taxes and their fees, and the buyer pays their own escrow fees as well. Now, the escrow holder, please always select your escrow holder. If you use Castlehead, escrow, okay, please do not put seller's choice, seller's preferred, or leave it blank. Okay. Always select a name. If it's ABC Escrow, Las Flores, Cindy Escrow, whoever that is, please put it here. Okay. Same thing goes with your owner's title policy insurance, right? Again, it's not both. It's not seller. I'm sorry, it's not buyer. It's the seller. And again, who's the title company? Orange Coast Title. If you use Stacy or Christy Wright at Downey, right? So Orange Coast Title. Now, if you don't use Orange Coast Title, if you guys all First American, if you guys Old Republic, whatever you guys use for your title company, please put it here and do not leave it blank. Okay. Q9 by default is already paid by the buyer. Nothing else to do here. When it comes to Q9, we want the seller to pay for their own county and transfer tax fees. Any city transfer tax fees as well. HOAs are being paid by the seller. Any HOA certification are paid by the buyer. Any HOA transfer fees are also paid by the seller as well. Any private transfer fees, if any. Okay, of course, it's already what by seller. It's already default by seller. Okay, no need to put here seller again. I see that. Okay, or if applicable. Okay, no need to put that no more. Leave it blank. Just by default, it's already what by seller, or it's checked. But again, leave it alone. Okay, right here, any other fees? Okay, keep in mind that we can no longer, okay, we can no longer say TC fees, document compliance fees. We had a class with our attorney, Bill Jansen, maybe about a month ago, right? That they don't want us to put any TC fees because it's under RESPA law. Okay, hold on. And we have a question on the chat box. Carlos Garcia is saying, can we place seller to select license company to avoid counter offers? Carlos, let me go back to this, Carlos. I know you want to avoid any counter offers, but Carlos, at the end of the day, my friend, you know this because you've been in the business for many years, right? Regardless of who you put down here, if it's a seller's choice license company, right? Most likely you will get a counter offer, okay? Because again, counter offers are based on what? On sales price. They're based on the days of close of escrow, and most likely they're also based on the financing, or maybe at the end, based on closing costs, and also could be based on contingency periods. Okay, so let's say, for example, the house is going for 650. I'm sorry, 675, right? And you only offer 650, right? Maybe because again, the market is pretty low. There's a lot of inventory, and you want to lowball the seller. And instead of going to 30-day escrow, you want to go 45-day escrow. And again, you go maybe your good faith, you want to go only 1% for the good faith deposit, right? So all that is going to be a reason why a seller would like to counter you back based on price, on the time of close of escrow, maybe on your earnest money deposit, right? And so many things, right? Now, I know that the escrow and also the closing costs, I know maybe you don't want to get countered back on the escrow title, right? But again, this, folks, the NHD, the escrow holder, and the title, and the home warranty is not going to be the deal breaker. Okay, is again, let me emphasize that is not going to be your deal breaker. Just because you have selected your own NHD, maybe because you selected your own escrow company or title, is not going to be the deal breaker. You will get counter back regardless. This is the last thing, pretty much. Again, their counter is going to be based on price, contingency period, the initial deposit, and the escrow. And at the last, they're going to come back and see, okay, you know what? Seller wants to choose their escrow company, their title, and NHD and home warranty. So Carlos, if I was you, Carlos, in this case, I would say I would definitely call up the listing agent. And if you don't want to, don't leave it blank. Ask them, hey, I'm getting ready to write an offer on your property, on your listing. Can you please let me know who do you use for the escrow, or who do you want to use for your escrow company? Well, we use ABC escrow. Then put their escrow company. So that will be one less thing that will go ahead and counter your back on. So it also shows it shows better on your offer that you're already given the choice for them to use their escrow company. So I would pick up the phone. I will call the listing agent. Hey, this is Freddy with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. I'm getting ready to write an offer on your listing. Can you please provide me with the names of the NHD, the escrow, and title, and the home warranty that you want to use on this escrow that we want to open with you guys? Okay, well, we use we use ABC NHD, ABC escrow, ABC title, and so on and so on. Then put it down. But again, if you don't have their names, then again, please put your own providers. Please, folks, please. Again, actually, one of our transactions with actually one of our agents, Alfredo Bañuelos, he did listen to our trainings, and then he did put the escrow company, which is Castlehead, and title, Orange Coast title. And guess what? Okay, the offer got accepted, okay, without actually being countered when it came to the the escrow and title holder. Yes, they got counted back on the sales price. Yes, they got counted back on the initial deposit, but the agent forgot to counter back on the title and the escrow holder. So guess what? When the offer got accepted, the other agent wanted to open escrow. Or actually, in fact, no, they did open escrow with their own escrow company. But because the escrow officer was, again, smart and she knew her job and she had to do it correctly, immediately she pointed out to the listing agent, hey, wait a minute. We cannot open escrow with our company. You never counter back that you wanted to use our escrow company. So automatically, that agent wanted to pull a fast one, and she said, you know what, wait a minute. The counter offer was never signed by the seller, and she modified the counter offer, and she added more verbiage, a second line, to add the escrow holder and the title, and then get it signed again to the buyer, to the seller. But by then, we already had received the offer and the original counter offer signed and fully executed by both parties. So she couldn't come back and say, well, we want to use our own escrow and title. It was already too late. So luckily, we opened escrow with Stacy upstairs, and we were actually in possession of the escrow holder and title in our name. So please, folks, keep in mind, I know it's between getting acceptance or not, but again, out of experience, I'm telling you guys, please always put something. Put your own escrow company. If you guys don't want to use your own escrow or title, then make a phone call and put it and have them and use their own company. Okay. So please, I strictly encourage all of you guys to please do not leave it blank, or at least put your own escrow company or theirs. Give them a call. Okay. Any questions before we move on? We move on when it comes to the names or the providers. Carlos, are we good, Carlitos?
Yes,
all right.
you're good.
Thank you, brother. Okay, so moving on. So again, on Q16, like I was saying, we can no longer use TC fees, document compliance fees to pay our own TCs. I will give it a different class how to charge the TC fee, because we got to use a different card form, which is card form BRE. Okay. We cannot charge anything else that is not our commission to the buyer or to the seller. So this is going to be on a different class. But again, please take note, is card form BRE. Buyer's exclusive representation of buyer. Okay, so right here, leave it blank. The home warranty, I seen this blank. Okay, when it comes to the home warranty, again, please, again, who's gonna pay for it? The seller, right? So it's gonna pay for it, and not to exceed at least $6,550, which is the basic. And always, again, use your provider. Now, when you're choosing a plan, okay, when you're choosing a plan for the home warranty, okay, please make sure to select the name of the plan. Okay, if it's the ultimate plan, if it's an Eagle plan, whatever plan it is you're selecting, it goes right here. What type of plan? Okay, and any additional coverages, maybe you want a roof coverage, right? As well. Okay, so please do not leave it blank here, because if you leave it blank, unless you're gonna order your own home warranty out of your own self, right? And you make the phone call, then you know what you want. But if you're gonna have your TC or the escrow officer to select the type of plan, and this portion is left blank, guess what? Most likely they will not choose the correct one. And who's gonna look bad? You are. Because maybe they don't know they need, maybe escrow officer or the TC, they don't know they want a roof coverage. They don't know you want appliances. They don't know that you want a pool or spa coverages. So please always have it here and write it down. Do not leave it blank. Okay. Now, in case your buyer doesn't want a home warranty at the beginning, okay, then please have it waive. Okay, have it waive. Okay, if you want to make it actually a better offer, then have it waive. Okay, do not leave it blank, because if you leave it blank, I will come back in your SkySlope and I will make a notation to please join an addendum to disclose who is going to pay for the home warranty, or if the buyer's going to waive it. Okay, so I need to know who's going to pay for it, or if the buyer's going to waive the home warranty. Now, keep in mind, if the buyer intends to waive it at the beginning, the buyer can come back and turn around and buy it before the close of escrow. You know what? Maybe they changed their mind. You know what? Maybe they thought about it. You know what? Brenda, you know what? I know I didn't want a home warranty at the beginning because I wanted to offer to get accepted, but I changed my mind. Can I buy it? Yes, you can. You go buy it and change your mind prior to the close of escrow, even though the buyer did waive it at the beginning. Okay, so you just gotta actually draw an addendum that the buyer decides to buy the home warranty at this cost to this provider and this plan. Okay, and then go ahead and buy the home warranty. Okay, so please, unless they don't want it, waive it, or have the seller pay for it. Put the actual not to exceed, the provider, and the type of plan right here. Okay, now going back to the termite pre-sale or anything else, okay, it goes right here. So in case you want the termite report and the termite work to be done, this is when you want to negotiate termite completion or section 1 to be paid, to be completed, or to be paid by the seller, right? Okay, section 1 is always what is already there, the infestation right there. Okay, that's to be paid by the seller. Okay, prior to the close of escrow, right? Anything else you want to ask for? Okay, again, this is the best place to always request for any work when it comes to termite report. Okay, any city pre-sale inspection reports. Okay, again, you want this, so maybe seller to complete or comply with the city of Southgate. Report. There you go. Okay, so seller to apply and to make corrections to the city, Southgate city. Okay, so again, we're asking the seller to comply and to make any corrections if required, right, on that city of Southgate city pre-sale report. Because if you don't, if you're only saying that, okay, yeah, the seller's gonna have it, right? But again, keep on, if you don't address it at the beginning, then most likely you're only saying that you only want the city pre-sale report, and the buyer will go ahead and waive that report. Now, one has been waived. I believe this buyer has, I believe it has 90 days to comply and go back to the city and address those issues that were either illegally done or needs to be permitted or needs to be demolished, who knows what. So again, this is where you want to address those issues right there. Okay. Any questions on this little, on page 3? We're good, Brenda?
What do you know what the addendum is called?
Which
The one that you can change your mind for the home warranty if they decide to get it.
Okay, so there's no addendum for the waiver, Brenda. Okay, so you definitely gotta just redo a regular addendum, card form ADM. This is just a regular ADM. You gotta put it in writing. That's the, you know, he decides to purchase a home warranty. Okay, yeah, so there's no addendum. Okay. Now, if you, for example, let me go back to the home warranty, and thank you for bringing that up, Brenda. Great question. In case you guys left this blank, okay, because you forgot to waive it, okay, there's no such disclosure to waive a home warranty. Again, there's no such disclosure to waive the home warranty. Okay, we do have waivers, okay, but not for home warranty. The only waiver that we have on car forms is car form BAW, but that's only to waive a home inspection, any termite reports, or any other report that was given to the buyer, okay, that they didn't decide to pursue or to go through it. Okay, but again, when it comes to the home warranty, there's no waiver. The only waiver is for the home inspection, termite reports, septic, roofer, appliances, who knows what. Okay, that's a waiver for only for the home investigations. That's it, but not for the home warranty. All right, let's move on. Page 4. Okay, page 4. There's more additional addendums or addenda and advisories, and please check all that apply. Okay, property type addenda. This agreement is subject to the following terms contained in the addendum check below. Now, if this is a probate, right, sale, purchase, then you need to attach card form PAPA, PAPA, right? This is a probate agreement purchase addendum. Okay, if this, in case this was a probate sale. Keep in mind, there's no more probate purchase agreements. Okay, there are no more purchase agreements. Okay, the RPA is enough. It suffice for the manufactured home, the regular sale, which is a regular transaction, purchase, and the probate, right? So again, in case you have a probate, attach a card form PAPA. Now, if this is a manufactured purchase home, right, you need to have card form MHPA, which is a manufactured home purchase addendum. Okay, if this is tenant occupied, then you need to attach card form TOPA, right? Should be checked whether current tenants will remain or not, right? And again, we went through this. Okay, always attach the TOPA, whether the tenants should remain in possession, yes or not, right? TOPA. Tenancy in common purchase agreement. If case there's a stock cooperative purchase agreement, card form COOPA, right there as well, or other, right? But again, you need to attach the following and check all that apply. Now, can all of them apply? Yes, they can. Can you buy a probate if it's tenant occupied? Of course you can. Can you buy a manufacturer if it's tenant occupied? Of course you can. Can you buy a probate there's a manufacturer that has a tenant occupied? Of course you can. It's all there, folks. Okay. Same thing. Tenants in common. I'm sorry if I missed this one. Okay. TICIPA, all that. Okay. It applies. Other addendums, right? Okay, addendums. Okay, in case you want to add an additional addendums with your purchase agreement right there, you want to always have it here. Maybe your offer is a backup offer. Okay, maybe it's already pending or it's on the contract. But again, your buyer says, you want Brenda, I know this property is already pending, it's on the contract, but I want you to submit my offer as a backup offer only, just in case that other offer will maybe fall. I want my offer to be next in line. Okay, and we have something in the chat box. Carlos G is saying, if an investor is purchasing an NOD, owner occupied property, we have to use the NOD purchase agreement. Yes, Carlos, yes, you got to use the NOD, and that's a new purchase agreement. Yes. So for any notice of default, yes, there is a notice of default purchase agreement. So yes, and I believe if I go to my all forms, you put NOD, and there it is. There's a notice of default, which is NODPA. Okay, so that's your so that's the actual purchase agreement you got to use when it comes to the notice of defaults. Okay, so please, yes, Carlos, very good question. Yes. Now, going back to the whole backup offer, yes. So in case there's the house is already pending or active on the contract, again, you could still submit offers on those properties, because again, we know, right, that we know that any offer that comes in, we still need to present it to the seller, okay, during the time of the escrow, regardless if it has closed. Okay, so once it's closed, that's it, it's a done deal. But if the escrow has not closed, if you're helping the seller and you get an offer your way, you still need to present it to the seller on your behalf. Okay, so please keep it in mind. Any septic well, property monument, and propane addendum, card form SWPI. Maybe the buyer needs to do an exchange, right? A 1031 exchange, card form BXA. Buyer intends to exchange an addendum or other. A short sale addendum, right? Card form SSA. maybe a court confirmation addendum card from CCA, a probate, and then maybe a seller has an exchange as well. Same thing right there. Okay, seller intends to exchange an addendum. That's 1031 exchanges right there. XSXA or other. Okay, and again by default, any buyer and says advisory, they're already been selected already. The BIA, the WFA, the Fair Housing, and the Consumer Privacy Act is already selected. Anything else as well goes right here. Any wildlife disaster advisory, maybe it's a trust, an REO bank owned, a statewide, short sale, probate, and so on. Okay, it's all there. Okay, so please select the boxes that are dependent on your purchase, on your sale. Okay, so pretty much I'm not gonna touch so much on this paragraph. I'm gonna continue moving forward. We discussed about the initial deposit, all cash offers, the loans on the grid, all that. But I'm gonna skip some pages here, okay? And I'm gonna go to page, actually to paragraph 14 here. Okay, paragraph 14, which is the on page, hold on, let's see. Right here, page 10, paragraph 14. Okay, so paragraph 14, okay, pretty much it stipulates the removal of contingencies and the cancellation rights. Okay, this is where pretty much you would, in case you want to go ahead and cancel because the buyer was not fully satisfied after the buyer has done their due diligence on the property when it came to what your inspections, investigations, disclosures, reports, right? Just those 5, right? 4, I'm sorry, just 4, right? Again, inspections, investigations, reports, disclosures, right? Those 4, okay? Those are the contingencies you go always withdraw your offer or cancel based on paragraph 14. Paragraph 14, okay? This is your, either you remove the contingencies, right? After 17 days, or you cancel based on those contingencies, right? And to remove contingencies, we use card form CR, or to cancel, we use card form CC. And we go back and relate it back to this, to paragraph 14. And let me go to my contingency removal. So give you guys what I'm talking about. So this is your contingency removal. And most likely you can have more than one, but you also want to start on one. And this is in accordance with the terms and conditions of the purchase agreement or request for repairs, or the response to reply to the request for repairs. But we always want to make it to the purchase agreement right there. Okay. And now, and again, and always this date, this is the date that is on your purchase agreement on the date prepared on top. So anything that says on the date prepared on the purchase agreement, it goes right here, dated from that agreement, between the buyer and the address, the buyer's name, and don't forget to put the seller's names as well, Sally seller. Okay. So this is your contingency removal right there. Okay. You go ahead and remove all, either as you go, right? Select from 2, A, B, C, D, E, F, A, G, H. Okay. Or you gotta go, so you gotta maybe go to 3. You want to remove all of them except for the loan and the appraisal, right? Or if you want to go to 4, right? You want to actually remove all of them at once. So if you select 4, you're saying the buyer is fully satisfied and they're gone through all your disclosures, appraisal, loan, and they have meet other contingencies. So you select number 4 to remove all of them. But again, it says here, what? On number 5, once all contingencies are removed, whether or not buyer has satisfied themselves regarding all contingencies or receive any information related to those contingencies, buyer may not be entitled to a return buyer's deposit if a buyer does not close escrow. This could happen even, for example, buyer does not approve of some aspect of the property or lender does not approve buyer's loan. Okay, so this is your actual consequences once they have removed all contingencies. So that means that once they have removed all contingencies in writing, okay, if the buyer wants to cancel, can the buyer cancel? Yes, they can cancel. Okay, they still can cancel, but there are consequences. Most likely, the seller will keep up to 3% of their initial deposit. Okay, so this is when it comes to liquidated damages. Okay, that yes, this is the penalty for removing your contingencies. Okay, all of them, and then you cancel. Okay, so this is the consequence. The seller may take, okay, 3% of their deposit and keep it to them as penalties. Okay, now in case they don't want to remove any contingencies, but they want to go ahead and cancel, okay, then let's go to a card form cancellation of a contract, and that's card form CC. Okay, and this is your cancellation of contract, deposition of deposit, and cancellation of escrow. And again, in accordance with the terms and conditions of the purchase agreement or other. Okay, same thing. The date of the offer goes right there. Okay, including all of the amendments and related documents of the property known as and the parties' names. Now, right here, okay, on cancellation of contract. Okay, now this is who's gonna initial the cancellation. Okay, so again, one party cancellation. This paragraph is used to cancel the agreement by buyer or seller. Its terms apply whether or not both parties agree to disposition of the deposit and cancellation of the escrow in paragraph 2 below. So right here on letter 1A, who's going to initiate the cancellation? In this case, it's going to be what? The buyer, right? We want the buyer because again, he's not happy with the disclosures. He's not happy with the property. He's not happy with the reports. He's just not a happy camper. So he's going to first initial the cancellation. Now, why he's going to cancel based on what? Well, as permitted by good faith exercise of paragraph what? Paragraph 14. And this is why we go back to paragraph 14, because this is where it goes back to relations on the investigations, inspections, reports, right? And disclosures, right? So just put paragraph 14, that's it, of that agreement, okay? Now, if it's not based on paragraph 14, right, then you may choose a different reason why, right? Maybe the seller has failed to remove the applicable contingency or take the applicable construction action after giving a what? A notice to perform to the seller, card form NSP. Okay, now let me stop real fast. Let me come back to you guys because I want to see you guys. Now, can a buyer cancel without first giving a seller a notice to perform? Can a buyer cancel without giving a seller a notice to perform? Yes or no? Juan? What do you think, Juan? Are you there? Okay, well, no. The buyer cannot cancel, okay, the escrow without giving a seller a notice to perform. And it goes the same way to the seller. The seller cannot cancel the escrow without first giving a notice to perform to the buyer. Okay, they got to give each other the last warning to perform. If either party does not perform according to the notice to perform notices, if they don't perform after those 2 days, which is actually on that disclosure, then yes, your buyer or the seller may exercise their cancellation rights. Again, so after giving a notice to perform to the buyer or to the seller, then either party may exercise their cancellation rights. Okay, but again, they cannot cancel without first giving each party a notice to perform. So I know sometimes in this business, in our business, you know, we always get threatened by the other agent that if we don't perform, we're going to actually cancel today. Well, if you don't do this today, we're going to cancel the escrow today. No, again, keep in mind, they cannot cancel the escrow today without first giving you a notice, a reason why you want to cancel the escrow. Even though you got a nasty email, even though you got a nasty comment or a phone call or text message. You know what, Rodrigo, because you didn't do this today, today is your last warning. That's it. We're gonna cancel by 5 p.m. If your bar doesn't do this today, we're gonna cancel. Please do not panic. Do not go crazy. Again, keep in mind, they must give you a notice to perform to cancel that escrow. Now, after they have given the buyer the last warning, okay, well, because you didn't provide the disclosures, because you didn't have an appraisal, because you didn't have the loan, now you have 2 days to perform. If you cannot perform in 2 days, then we'll go ahead and go cancel now. Okay, so please keep that in mind. Same thing with the seller. Okay, now let me go back to the cancellation here. Okay, so either one, okay, and then option number 4, the other party has failed to close the escrow after being given a notice, a demand to close the escrow. Same thing. If either party, okay, cannot close the escrow, maybe because again they have a contingency to close, to buy, and everything else, or maybe the seller cannot evict those tenants, right? Because it is tenant occupied and the tenants have not yet left, right? Then he'll be a breach of contract, okay? Because he did sign that he will have the house vacant 10 days prior to the close of escrow. And guess what? The time has come and you're getting ready to close. And again, you cannot say, well, if you cannot close tomorrow by 5 p.m., then I'm going to go ahead and cancel today or tomorrow, for example, right? Again, you need to give that seller the last warning, the demand to close escrow. And that's a 3-day gap as well, a 3-day grace period, okay? Mr. Seller, you have 3 days from today to either we got to close escrow. If you don't close, then yes, I may cancel the escrow and I'm going to ask for all my money to get refunded back to me. Again, everything that I invested on the home inspections, on the appraisal, and anything that I invested on this purchase, on this transaction. Okay. So again, either party, they cannot cancel without first giving a what? A notice to perform to the buyer, or a notice to perform to the seller, or the last one, a notice, a demand to close escrow or other. Now, if this is a mutual cancellation, then right here, letter B, is a proposed mutual cancellation. The buyer or seller signing below purposes a mutual cancellation of this agreement. The cancellation is only effective if the agreement is reached and both parties have signed the paragraph 2 below right here. Okay, so they sign here. So the initial buyer, the party who has initiated the cancellations will sign right here, which in this case will be buyer. Okay, and then we will go to the bottom. Don't forget to put the escrow number right there, the name of the escrow. Okay, and always select the first one, C1. Okay, always select C1. Do not select C2. Okay, and why C1? Because we want the seller to what? To authorize the release of the buyer's deposit. Okay, minus any buyer's fees and costs already incurred and agreed in the contract to be paid through escrow. Okay, so always make sure, be very careful how you select the actual boxes here, because if you go to letter B, letter C2, you're saying that you what, Mr. Buyer, Mr. Seller, I'm giving you back your deposit. I don't want my deposit. So you're giving up the buyer's deposit to the seller. So buyer authorizes release of the buyer's deposit to the seller, less seller's fees and costs already incurred and agreed in the contract to be paid through escrow. So please select 1. Okay, or right here, the buyer releases maybe a sum and maybe $1,000. Okay, from the buyer deposit to the seller. Okay, maybe not all of it, but in good faith, because I couldn't perform and I dragged to all this mess and I couldn't buy the property. I'm gonna release some portion of my deposit, not all of it, but some portion in good faith, and it goes right there. Or number 4, right? And also this has been very common, that you open escrow, but immediately it didn't go as far as you wanted to go, right, to move forward, and there was no deposit in escrow. Then right here, there's no deposit in escrow. Each party shall pay their own unpaid construction fees and costs, if any, right, already incurred and agreed in the contract to be paid the escrow, right? So again, only number 4, if there was no deposit in the escrow. Okay, right there. And that's it. Or any partial release restoration of rights right there, and so on, and that's it. So just by signing this part here, it doesn't mean the cancellation. The seller has to sign again here. The buyer has to sign again, and the seller has to sign to agree for the cancellation. Okay. So again, whoever the last party needs to sign for the cancellation. Now, what if the seller doesn't want to sign this cancellation? And so you want, well, we're not going to sign the cancellation. I don't want to cancel the escrow. I want to move on. What can happen there? Well, most likely the escrow cannot be closed and it has to be open. So most likely it's going to be like a list pendants, or it's going to be held. So this is in case the buyer doesn't want to cancel. Right now, if the seller says, you want, well, you know what, I need you to buy this property. Again, you cannot force somebody to buy something you can't. Now, most likely it's going to go to mediation or arbitration in this case, right? So the mediator is going to listen to both sides, both parties, right? If that issue cannot solve in the mediation room, then it's going to go to arbitration, right? And the arbitrator, it could be what? An attorney who practices real estate at least 5 years, or a retired judge, right? The only person who could be the arbitrator. A mediator could be anybody, but it has to be in a neutral zone. And most likely it cannot be in our office and the other office, right? And it has to be in a neutral zone. Most likely mediations are held at the board of realtors right there, because it's a neutral zone, right? Now, who pays for the mediator? Well, the mediator is being paid by the parties, right? Same thing with the arbitrator as well. Okay. Now, depending on how that goes, whoever acted in bad faith or in good faith, and they'll honor that in favor of that buyer or the seller in this case. Okay. So again, keep that in mind. But again, most likely cancellations are okay to go through, right? But again, whoever initials here on top, permitted as paragraph 14, and so on. Okay. Any questions on the cancellation of a contract and the release of deposits? We're good? All right. Let's go back to our RPA. So always cancel based on paragraph 14. Right there. Okay. Okay, now let me go over here to the bottom on B2. Now, when it comes to doing a request for repairs, okay, keep in mind when it comes to doing a request for repairs on anything on the property, please do not request for the home when it comes to on the actual smoke detectors or the carbon monoxide. Please do not request that to be done on the seller's behalf. We know already from the beginning that the seller is obligated. It's already been negotiated as well that the seller will install, right, all smoke alarms and carbon monoxide. Okay, no need to put it down again on your request for repairs. Okay, and we know that how many smoke alarms do we need on each household, depending on the rooms, on the bedrooms, right, that we have, and one on the hallway, right? So depending on how many bedrooms we have in the house and one in the hallway. So if you have 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, then you need 4, right? 1 in each bedroom and 1 in the hallway. Okay. How many carbon monoxide? Only 1 per floor. Okay. 1 per floor. Now keep in mind when it comes to the request for repairs, you know, sometimes it gets kind of, I don't know, kind of like a stressful because you don't get a response from the other party. But it says here, what? The seller has no what? Seller has no obligation to agree or to respond the buyer's request on the card form R&R or R&R, right? Again, so please do not get upset, do not get frustrated, do not get mad if the other party does not respond to your request for repairs. Because it says here, seller has no obligation to agree or to respond to the request. Now, if the seller does not agree or responds, right, buyer is not contractually entitled to have the repairs or other repairs made or any made only by based on the contingencies and agreements. Again, so they're not entitled, right, to do any repairs as well. Okay, so please keep that in mind in case you don't get any responses from the other party as well. Okay. Again, contingencies, we went through that already. We have 17 days. Now, does the seller have any contingencies? We know that the buyer has contingencies, but the seller, does the buyer, no, I'm sorry. We know the buyer has contingencies, but the seller has contingencies? Yes, he or she does. The seller only has one contingency in play, okay? And what is that? Only if it applies, okay? The only contingency the seller has in case their seller needs to do a replacement of the property of purchase, right? That's the only contingency the seller has. They need to find a replacement, right, of their home they're selling. So, for example, let's say this house they're selling right now to the buyer. The only contingency is for them to find a replacement home to purchase of this home, right? And also, now, let's go back to the contingency removal right here. Now, keep in mind the contingency removal, okay, is divided into two sections, okay? The first part right here, where this little line goes across, it belongs to the buyer. And on paragraph 6, okay, and down, it belongs to the seller. And I have seen in many occasions that the buyer will send this to get signed, and they send it back to the seller. And I don't know why, but also the seller signs it when they don't have to sign it at all. The only place the seller will have to sign is when they need to find out replacing property for their home they're selling. Okay. Now, can one contingency be enough for two parties? No. Okay. Each party needs to do their own contingency. Okay. Just like the counter offers. So if you have one contingency for the buyer, number one, you also need to have one contingency for the seller. Also number one. Okay. You cannot have one for the buyer and the same thing at the bottom. No. Only one for per party. Okay. So right here, finding, they already found it or they already closed their purchase. So whatever that is, seller will sign here. They already have met that contingency. They already probably have their closing or they find a replacement. So right here. And you can also do what? A notice to perform. Hey, guess what? You want me to remove my contingency for the purchase, right? All my contingencies, but I need you also to remove your contingency on your replacing property or the closing. So please send me that cancellation. I'm sorry, send me that contingency removal as well. Okay. Let's go back to the offer. Let's see. So keep in mind. So the seller also has only one contingency. Okay. Now, can the seller cancel for any given reason? Can the seller cancel for any given reason? Yes or no? Or can a seller cancel for a better offer? No. The seller cannot cancel for any given reason. There has to be a good reason why, based on the buyer's default, to cancel or withdraw from that offer, right? But because they had a better offer, they came in, or maybe they want to sell it they change their heart, they change their mind, right? And they don't want to sell it no more, unless it's a very strong reason why, right? Maybe somebody got ill, got sick, or they really changed their mind. You know what? They lost their job, and they can no longer cancel no more. They can no longer sell no more. Then yes, they could always cancel based on those reasons. But again, it has to be a really strong reason they want to cancel. Again, they lost their job, right? Maybe somebody got ill or got sick, and they can't sell the house no more. But again, you always can dispute this with a mediator or arbitrator, because you always, at the end of the day, you always can force to sell. Okay. But they cannot cancel because they have a better offer, because they want to just keep it to themselves, because who knows what. No. At the end of the day, they cannot cancel. Okay. The only reason they could cancel because they couldn't find a replacement and they had that contingency in play. They couldn't find a replacement of this home and they had a contingency, and they come back to you, to the buyer. You know what? We looked so many homes out there. We couldn't find anything that is suitable for us. They're too expensive. They're out of our profit, our budget. I'm sorry, we have to cancel because we cannot afford something else. So we decide to stay with our home. Okay, fine. Okay, so that's it. All right, let's move on. Repairs, we know that about repairs. When it comes to credits to the buyer, okay, when it comes to getting credits to the buyer for any closing costs or any of the repairs, keep in mind that when it comes to credits for the repairs, you always need to ask that lender or that bank how much, up to how much can the credit be to be credited to the buyer from the seller. Okay, keep in mind, a lot of banks do not allow a lot of credits to be given to the buyer on the seller's behalf, because when you're asking for, let's say, for 20,000 in credits, most likely the banks do not see that as a good purchase, because if you're asking for so much money in credits, now the house might need repairs. The house might not either. Well, if it needs so much money in repairs or in credits, there's something wrong with the property. Okay, then they might want to reevaluate the appraisal and go see what's going on with the property, with the value. Maybe it's not worth no more 675. Maybe it's worth less. Maybe 650 or 640. So you got to be very careful how much to ask when it comes to credits for repairs. And always ask your lender when it comes to that, okay? Please keep that in mind. Repairs on that, credits and so on, compensations. Let's move on. Okay, continue with this. So when it comes to liquidated damages, okay, this is the 3% that we discuss, and we always encourage our buyer to come in with at least 3% of the actual sales price. But again, on paragraph 29, the buyers, it says here, what? Liquidated damages. By initiating before the space below, you are agreeing to liquidated damages. A buyer fails to complete this purchase because a buyer's defaults, seller shall retain as liquidated damages the deposit actually paid. If the property is a dwelling with no more than 4 units, one which the buyer intends to occupy, then the amount retained shall be no more than the 3% of the purchase price. Any excess shall be returned to the buyer. Release of funds will require mutual signed release instructions from both buyer and seller, judicial decision or arbitration award. At the time of any increased deposit, buyer and seller shall sign a separate liquidated damages provision incorporating the increased deposit as liquidated damages card from the ID. Okay, so pretty much what this paragraph says, if your buyer intends to occupy one of 4 units as a owner occupied, then the most the seller can retain is no more than 3%, right? Now, what would if this is a secondary or investment property? How much can a seller retain from a buyer? What percentage? What would be the good percentage you guys would think? If for owner occupied is no more than 3%, right? How much for a secondary or investment property? How much percentage can that be? Anybody wants to take a lucky guess? Claudia? Okay, so pretty much there's no set percentage when it comes to how much a seller can retain from the seller's deposit. Okay, keep in mind, since it is an investment, there's nothing set in stone. Okay, nothing set in stone. So the percentage can be 5, 10, whatever the seller feels entitled, right, for the loss of their actually for damages. Okay, so please keep that in mind. So for an investment or secondary home, there's no set percentage when it comes to that. All right, let's move on. We already talked about disputes, right? When it comes to anything that is actually has been agreed or has been actually set in the contracts in the RPA or any counter offer. Okay, if for whatever given reason they want to change or modify any modifications and without your consent, then most likely you want to go to mediation or arbitration. Now, keep in mind when it comes to mediation and arbitration. Now we as the agents, as the brokers, okay, we're not part of this litigation that is goes on. Okay. Now, are we part of the mediation? No, we're not. Do we have to be part? Do we gotta be present with them? No, we don't have to, unless they ask you, hey, Carlos, JJ, or Brenda, can you please actually accompany me to this mediation? Because I honestly I don't know what to say, what to ask, or how to answer. Again, keep in mind we're not attorneys. Okay. Now you go accompany them, but when it comes to the mediator or the arbitrator, the only questions and answers are being given to the parties. That's it. We could provide the copy of the file, documents, disclosures, loans. Again, you name it. You could give that to your client, but they will never ask us, how this happened and what happened and so on. It's going to be up to the mediator and the parties, or the arbitrator and the parties, to question and ask. That's it. Okay. Now we don't have to be present. It's up to you guys who want to, but by choice, you guys don't have to. All right. Page 14. Any questions when it came to liquidated damages? Questions on that? 3% or investor or non-investor? We're good. Okay. When it comes to page 15, when it comes to the entity of buyers or sellers, right? In case you have an LLC, a probate estate, a trust, corporation, partnership, and so on, power of attorney, and so on, right? Again, you definitely gotta make sure to select this box right here, okay? Because by that, you're notifying that seller that Bob Buyer is not buying the property as himself, right? He's only acting as a representative capacity for a corporation, for an LLC, for a probate estate, for a partnership, for a power of attorney. So they're only acting as a capacity for that entity. Okay. So they're not buying the home for themselves. Okay. Keep that in mind. So this is how you notify that seller. Okay. And then you put the name of the entity right here. Okay. The case, if it's a trust and so on. Okay. And then they sign here as well, their name. Okay. Now, in case you have more than 2 signers, right? In case you have more than 2 signers, right? Then you gotta attach card form ASA, additional signature addendum. Okay, they're part of the contract. We're not adding them to the contract. They're part of this contract from the beginning. Okay, the only form that you use to add or to delete, okay, buyers, right, is card form AOAA, which is assignment of addendum, something like that for the name, right? It's assignment of addendum. Okay, to assign, to add, or to delete. But when you have a third or fourth buyer, they already are part of this contract. So you gotta add card form ASA, which is an additional signature addendum, and always select this box as well to notify, hey, we have more than 3 buyers on this transaction. Please look at the actual card form ASA as well. Okay. So when it comes to acceptance here, okay, keep in mind that right here, this is to leave left blank and to be filled up by the listing agent. And then to select if it's a counter offer, a backup offer addendum, or also if there are also entity sellers as well. Maybe they're also acting as a what? As an entity, again, as LLC, corporation, partnership, trust, power of attorney, and so on. Okay. So always make sure these boxes are selected. Okay. Please, if you are helping the seller as well. Okay. And the sign right here and so on. And if they have more than 2 sellers, I'm sorry, more than 3 sellers, same thing goes right there. Okay. Now, if your offer did not get accepted, okay, then ask them to send you the offer initialed by the seller and the date that it was refused as well. Okay. If your offer did not get accepted, you have the right to request the rejection of the offer, initialed, and the date of acceptance. Now, me personally, I don't like this little box. Okay, I would rather see an actual signature from the seller and the date, because initials, anybody can just initial, FG, BU, JJ, CG, and so on, right? Again, anybody can put an initial right there and date it, and that's it. You know what? Well, A got rejected, and we never know if it was an actual initial from the seller, right? We don't can know. But an actual signature, you know, we could definitely, hey, unless they forge that signature, then they're doing wrong, right? But again, keep that in mind. Any questions on page 15? Okay, let's move on. When it comes to the actual real estate broker section, okay, this was the who's the actual representation of the brokers of the parties, and then of course Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, your license number, and then of course if you have more than one agent, maybe you have a co-agent. So in this case, let's say for example, you know, Freddy Gamboa is right here, and I have a co-agent. In this case, my agent is Brenda Urena, right there, and I put up for her right there. So I'm the agent, and Brenda Urena is my co-agent on this transaction. Okay, so it goes right there. Okay, now what would happen if Brenda is from a different broker? You know, maybe she's from Remax. Can we also work together? Of course you can. You know, two different brokerages can work together on the same transaction. But for that, we got to use what? Card form ABA. See, more than one brokerage firm since buyer, additional broker acknowledgement, card form ABA. Right there. Now, let's say we have more than 2 agents involved. Wow, we have 3 agents. Then more than one agent, right? The same firm since the buyer, same thing. Now we got to use card form AAA, right? AAA, right there. It's attached. Okay. So yes, you could have more than 2 agents as well. And of course, any designated electronic addresses, your email address right there, text. And again, keep in mind that, okay, if you put your email address or your phone number as a text message right there, and the other party claims they have sent the acceptance, okay, to your email, but you never received it, that time clock starts right there. So make sure to always be on standby. If you have spoken to the other party, to the other agent, hey, Carlos, you know, your offer is gonna get accepted. Please be on standby. Your offer, you know, we should be getting get it signed, fully executed by the seller. You know, counter offers on the way, and so on. So please make sure to check your spam, your junk, and your inbox to make sure you received it. If you didn't receive it, and they can say that we just send it right now, well, please confirm it. It has been received. If you didn't receive it, make sure to have them to resend it once again, because if you didn't get it, the clock starts right there. Okay, right there and then. And so on. Okay, right there. Acknowledgement right there. This is for this to be, this part is, it is signed by the escrow holder, and so on. And that's it. And also, don't forget to have the presentation of the offer initiated by the agent or the seller, and the date of it was presented. Okay, so start right there. I'm not opening for any Q&A. Any other questions you guys have, please unmute yourself or put it in the chat box. Questions, concerns, doubts, something that are we good? Rodrigo, JJ, Carlos, Brenda, Claudia, Juan, Esther, Tiffany.
Yeah, I'm good.
You good? All right. So we're good, right? Yes. Eddie, any comments, Eddie?
Hey, before I share something that Dennis wants us to all know about, I've always wondered, is that presentation offer, is that mandatory for them to give you that sign back?
On the bottom section or what?
Yeah. Is it mandatory?
Well, if it's here, it should be mandatory. Yes, Eddie.
It should be, but is it mandatory?
Well, again, you want to know when was the offer presented, right?
Yeah.
So I would definitely say yes, it is mandatory.
Because I've asked for it before, and they're like, "Oh, I'll send it to you," and they never do. And then follow up, and a lot of times I don't trust some of these agents, especially when you end up finding out that the offer was lower than the offer that you sent out. So
you're speaking about the rejecting of the offer?
Yeah. No. Presentation of the offer, Freddy.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, again, it could go either way, Eddie, right? So it could go either got rejected, right? But was presented. Yeah. Right.
Either or, they don't send back either one.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, they don't. And they should. They have to. They have again. Because yeah, like I said, maybe you find out that it was sold for a lower price,
Yeah.
Right. Well, wait a minute. Did you present my offer? Right. You go argue
Exactly.
the fact. But unless you want to go to litigations and everything else and fight it, unless you have really good grounds,
Yeah, I hear
and of
you.
course, yeah, you go again. You go always fight it. You know, you go put at least pending something. But again, who's gonna go through all the mess, right?
Okay.
All right. Anything else? Good.
Just wanted to share that Dennis wants as many agents as possible on this week's
Oh yes, Thursday.
Thursday thing. I have the thing up if you want me to share it.
Yeah. Let me go ahead. Go ahead. Do it. Mr. A great class.
So Alan Dalton will be speaking this Thursday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And Dennis would like our office to please represent and participate. That goes along for the Downey office as well. But I mean, he wants at least 20 agents from each office.
So please commit yourself 9 to 11. Oh my, 2 hour. Nice. It's gonna be great training right there. Nice, awesome. So please make some time. If you're out and about, put it in your phone or just put it to the audio. That works. All right, folks. Well, that's our RPA. We're gonna go and continue with the listening content.